Hey guys, so a while back I made a video talking about Holocaust denial and how I was getting a lot of Holocaust denialist comments in my videos and the comment sections, and I said this wasn't acceptable and that I would deal with it, and I would also produce videos on this explaining why it had to have happened and so on and so forth. Now it's been several months and yet nothing, I haven't produced anything on it, and several people have been asking me, come on, where are these videos, etc, etc. And so this is a little bit of an update to that, but it's also an explanation as to why I can't just come out and go, the Holocaust happened, here's the reason why it happened, and this is, fundamentally why these guys can't deny it. Because that's the thing, I've actually been arguing with these people in the comment sections of my videos, and I've been saying, because they post something like, oh, it didn't happen, it's a hoax or whatever, and I go, okay, well, so what about this? And they go, and they try and crawl out of it, and then I go, well, what about this? And that's it. Conversation's over. Well, the debate's over. There's no debate now. After this, it's just a case of, you're an idiot, blah, 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 and a rant, or some of them delete their own comments because they got so flustered. I've completely undermined their entire argument, because it is. When you start distorting history, it's very easy to have your arguments undermined, chip away at the foundations of the argument. If you're distorting history, it's like there's problems. It doesn't make any sense. So these guys who are denying it, it's like, okay, you want to deny it, okay, that's a distortion, that's up to you, you want to deny it. But then this means that this is the case, and this new thing that you've made by denying this has caused such a massive distortion that it undermines your argument for actually denying it. So it's literally, without even talking about the gas chambers and all that other stuff, I don't even have to. I just go, okay, you're saying it's not happening. That means that this other thing is happening, which means that it didn't happen, and neither did this, and blah, 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 and it just undermines their entire argument. That it counterattacks their entire ideology, okay? And this is the point. The reason, because, how can I explain it? So, these people who are denying the Holocaust, they're not denying it because they think it didn't happen. They're not. They know it happened. They know it happened. The reason why they are saying it didn't happen is because they're taking the mick out of academic historians. I'm using that in quotation marks because they do. They call them, academic historians don't know what they're talking about, right? Academic historians. They're taking the mick out of academic historians. That's what they're actually doing. They're trolling. They're actually going, hey, look, your ideas don't work, right? Because what's happened is the academic historians have kind of screwed up massively. And this is what the National Socialists are actually saying. You guys have screwed up. Look, we're poking fun. I can put my fist through the distortion that you have created, right? The hole in your entire argument, right? The academic historians have got a massive bucket with a huge hole in the side. And then these National Socialists who are denying the Holocaust are going, look, this doesn't work. This doesn't work, right? That's what they're doing. They're saying, hey, the Holocaust didn't happen, and the reason why it didn't happen is because you have distorted history, right? That's what they're actually saying. It's a troll. It's almost a troll. When I think about it, the National Socialists poking this hole, it's actually quite funny, because they're basically shouting to the hills, hey, look, there's a distortion, and people are ignoring them because they are National Socialists, which is understandable, but it's still a case of, hey, they're making such a big fuss about this because they are taking the mick out of the academic historians, and because the academic historians are actually pushing a certain agenda, they are not able to close this gap, which is, being poked by the National Socialists who are denying the Holocaust. The point is that the National Socialists are saying this explanation as to why does not make sense. You have fundamentally messed up your explanation, and here is a massive gap. The fact that they can say it didn't happen, and you cannot, you go, well, here's all the evidence that it says, yeah, but it doesn't mean, like, they can undermine it by saying, well, Hitler didn't know about it, or Hitler did, they've got their own little narratives that explain it, but the problem is none of them actually make any sense at all. And you can actually fill in the gap. I filled in the gap by asking 2 questions to these Holocaust denialists. I can do that. I can do that, so why the heck can't these other academic historians do it? Because if they did that, if they filled in that hole, it would undermine the narrative that they are pushing. So in order for me to tackle the distortion of the Holocaust denialists, I have to tackle this massive distortion being put out by academic historians, and not all of them, just some, but these academic historians who are some of the big names out there. And I'm not saying they're all, colluding together in some sort of grand conspiracy. That's not what's happening. Some of them are just, they don't know. They're just like, oh, I didn't look into that. So some of them are just kind of going with the flow because, people influence each other and so on and so forth. So they may not necessarily grasp the idea of what they're actually saying and why this undermines their own argument. But some of them are. Some of them are pushing an agenda. So in order for me to tackle the Holocaust denialist, I have to tackle this huge, massive distortion first. So that's the reason why I can't just go, right, the Holocaust happened, here's why, because I would get counterattacked on every front. And people go, well, this historian said this, you're wrong. And it's like, yes, because he said it because he was pushing an agenda. So that's the reason why I've not come out with anything yet. It doesn't mean I haven't been working on it. I have. Now and then when I get a chance, I've been putting a few hours in. I think a good way of explaining how this distortion of history looks and why at first glance it might seem to not be a distortion of history, but in actuality it is to give you an example of another distortion of history which has a knock-on effect. Because when you distort history on one hand, yes, it might fill a piece of the puzzle in here, but it then has a knock-on effect somewhere else. Well, if that's the case, then that means that this isn't the case, which then distorts. That's the distortion. It's like, oh, this is the root of it, and that's the effect of it. And because some of you will probably disagree with me here at first, and then go, oh yeah, that doesn't make any sense, and that is hey, there's a distortion here, right? If that happens to you, if you go, yeah, that doesn't make any sense, you've been deceived, right? That's a distortion. So let me explain. So it's a rhetorical question, this first one, but let's go with it. So, was Hitler's regime, was the Third Reich a totalitarian dictatorship? Yes. Okay. Even Wikipedia says it is. Okay. So even Wikipedia's right in this case. Hitler's regime, Third Reich, is a totalitarian dictatorship. Great. So that means that Hitler and his regime have total control over the economy. Because if they don't, then it's no longer totalitarianism. Total control, totalitarian, authoritarian, totalitarian. The regime is in control of the means of production and everything. And if that's the case, then it has to be socialism. Or, if it isn't, if it's capitalism, then Hitler is no longer a totalitarian dictator. Yeah. Oh, this is going to cause some problems in the comment section. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the answers. It's great. Oh, I love it. I love distortions of history when they get called out. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching.